Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well today and welcome back to another beautiful tutorial. So in this tutorial today, I'll be sharing with you how you can make a beautiful v-neck not shoulder top pattern, and I will show you how you can stitch this together as well. If you're new to the channel, you're welcome. This is Donlarrie, and on this channel we share pattern drafting and sewing tutorial. Kindly subscribe and don't forget to turn on your notification button. So you're going to be needing your dartless basic bodice pattern for this pattern. I have on the channel some videos that will guide you through how you can, step by step how to draft your basic bodice pattern. So once you have your dartless basic bodice pattern ready, you're going to transfer this pattern into another pattern paper. So this is what I'm doing here. All right guys, so once you've transferred your dartless bodice pattern to another pattern paper like this, go ahead and label it. As you can see, this is my front pattern. Here I have the center front line, the center back line, the bust line, the waist line, and the hip line. So we're going to be altering this pattern in order to create the v-neck not shoulder top pattern. And we're going to be adjusting the neckline, we're going to be adjusting the shoulder seam, we're going to be adding some ease and seam allowance to the side, and then we're going to be also drafting it's a long strip that we're going to be using for the knot at the shoulder. So let's get started. So we're going to be starting with the neckline, and we're going to be starting with the front. So on the front now, depending on how deep you want your neckline to be, so you can see I have the starting line here, so that will serve as a guide for you. So from that starting line, you can measure maybe 6 inches depending on how deep you want your pattern to be. So you can go as low as 6 inches, 7 inches. That is from your shoulder line. This is our shoulder line. The starting point line is also the same as the shoulder line, not from this point. You're going to measure that depth, the neck depth, from your shoulder line down towards your center front, depending on how deep you want it. So you can mark 6 inches, 7 inches, just like I said, depending on how deep you want it. So because I'm making this pattern for the mini dress form, I'll be marking 3 inches like this, and the same thing that I mark here, that is what I will mark on the back pattern, because the neck depth is the same. So you can make yours the same, and you can make the front lower than, deeper than the back, depending on how you want it. So once you have a new neck depth for both the front and the back, then you can adjust the neck width as well, depending on how wide you want the neckline to be. So let's assume you've used 4 inches for the neck width already. You can mark 1 inch. You can extend the neck width by ½ an inch or up to 1 inch. So if you are extending it by ½ an inch or up to 1 inch, from this point of your shoulder, you're going to measure 1 inch from here down to here. And I did the same thing on the back. This is the back. So from here to here, you mark 1 inch or ½ an inch. And then from your shoulder tip here, you're going to be measuring ½ an inch or up to 1 inch. And then you should be left with around 2 inches or 2.5 inches around here. And that should be enough. So once you've done that, then we're going to be creating our new neckline, and then we adjust the armhole curve as well. So let's quickly do that. And like this. So once you've done that, the next thing you want to do is to add your ease allowance and seam allowance to the side. So what you're going to be doing now is that you're going to be adding that allowance to the under the arm and then to the hip line. So from your under the arm here now, you're going to be adding, you can add ease allowance of ½ an inch or up to 1 inch to it, because this is a loose fitting top. So you add that, and then on your hip line, you can also add up to 1 inch ease allowance to it. Remember, this is just one part, one half of the top. By the time you add the other half to it, you're going to have 1 inch. If you had 1 inch here, by the time you open it up, it means you are adding 2 inch ease allowance. So you need to have that in mind. So you can add up to, like I said, depending on how comfortable you want it. And this is a loose fitting top, so you can add up to 1 inch is allowance. So on the under the arm, go ahead and add half an inch to your under the arm, and to the hip, go ahead and add 1 inch to it. And then from here now, you're going to draw a new side seam line. So you don't need to worry about your waistline unless you want to make it a fitted top. Maybe you want to add a zipper to it. But this particular pattern we are drafting, you don't need to add any zipper to it. And you do the same thing to the back. So this is our new side seam line. This is the old. You can cross that out. So the next thing we're going to be doing now is to go ahead and add our seam allowance around this pattern. So this pattern, we're going to be cutting both the center front and the center back on fold. Go ahead and add your half an inch seam allowance round, but you're not adding any seam allowance to the center front and to the center back. All right guys, so I've added the seam allowance to it, as you can see it, and I've cut it out. So now I have the bodice pattern ready, and the next thing we're going to be doing now is to cut out the strip that we're going to be needing for the knot at the shoulder area. So what you're going to be doing is that you're going to be measuring whatever you have here without the seam allowance. Don't measure the seam allowance yet, okay? So you can have 2 inches, 2.5 inches, whatever you have, that is what you're going to be measuring here. And let's see what we have here. So here we have 1/7/8, and then we're going to be measuring that here. So that's going to be the width. So once you've marked that, then you determine the length of the belt, how long you want the belt to be. So for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm just going to be using 12 inches. So depending on how long you want the knot to be, so you can measure that. So 12 inches. So whatever you measure here, that is what you will also measure here. Now go ahead and add your seam allowance to this. So for this strip pattern, you can cut ×4 of this. And if you are adding lining to it, if you want to turn it with the lining just to have a neat finishing, you can also cut. So this will be ×4 of the main fabric, but I would suggest you use the same fabric for both the main fabric and the lining. So and ×4 of the lining. Okay, so I hope you understand that. So for the center front, like I said, you're going to be cutting it on fold. So you will cut ×1 on fold, and then for the center back you will also cut ×1 on fold. So now we have the pattern cut out, and we have the strip pattern cut out as well. So the next thing you want to do is to cut out a facing for this pattern. If you want to have a neat finishing, you can go ahead and use your bias tape to finish the neckline and the armhole curve. But if you want to have that neat finishing, I'll suggest you cut out a facing for this pattern. And to cut out a facing is very simple. I will quickly show you how you can do that. We'll turn this pattern to the back so that you can clearly see what I want to do. So this is the back pattern. So I'll just write center back here, and then this is the front pattern. I will write center front here. So now we want to trace out, or we want to draft our facing pattern on this pattern. So all you need to do is to measure 2 inches or 2.5 inches or 3 inches, depending on your measurement, from this point of your neckline, and then you will mark the same from this of your armhole under the arm. So like this. So I'm marking 1.5 inches because I'm drafting this pattern for the mini dress form. So for your normal measurement, mark 2 inches, 2.5 inches, and up to 3 inches from this point downward and from this point downward. Okay, so once you've done that, then you're going to create a nice curve you know, around here also measure the same measurement like this. You come to your neckline area also, so leave distance of about 2 or 3 inches, and then you measure the same thing that you just measured. So, and I'm going to connect these together, so like this. As simple as this. So you can use your own method of drafting out the facing. So I'll quickly go ahead and cut this pattern out, and then I'll show you guys how you can quickly join it together. All right guys, so I've cut out the pattern just like I explained. So you cut out your pattern, and then we've already added the seam allowance, so go ahead and cut it out. And also you cut out your facing. So this is the front and this is the back pattern. So, and as you can see how the facing looks like, if you follow this pattern, this is what your facing will look like. But if you don't like it this way, you can go ahead and mark a straight, you know, line instead of creating this curve around here. So if you mark a straight line, your facing, you know, will be like this. As simple as that. And then this is the strip. So for the strip, like I said earlier, that you cut ×4 of the main fabric and ×4 of the lining. So if you are using the same fabric both for the lining and for the main fabric, what you can do is to cut one side on fold, and that is what I have done here. So I've cut one side on fold, and I will just trim out this seam allowance so that I don't get confused. So this is what I cut out. So I cut out one side on fold, and as you can see, this is what I have. So I have a long stripe here. Can you see that? So, and what we do now is to fold this into 2. So you go ahead and fold this into 2, then you go to your sewing machine and you stitch at one side and you stitch at the other side. That is what you will do for all of the stripes, and then you turn it out through this opening that you will have here. So for the bodice now, what you're going to do on your sewing machine is to stitch the neckline and the armhole cuff. So once you've joined the facing and the bodice together, the neckline and the armhole cuff, go ahead and snip all this cuffed area. Then this is the stripe. Just like I told you, you join it and you turn it out through the opening that you have. So once you've done that, you will need 2 for this bodice, the front bodice, and 2 for the back bodice. So go ahead and put, you can see the right side of the fabric here. So you put you pass the strip through the shoulder seam like this, and then you stitch. Okay guys, so this is what I have. So once you've joined the strip to the shoulder, this is what you will have. So this is the back. So you're not going to place the 2 together, right side facing each other like this, so that we can finish the side seam and the hem line. So place the 2 together, and then you're going to pick your facing on the front and pick your facing on the back. So you're going to stitch your facing separately and the side seam of the body separately. Okay, so you can see the way I'm placing it, and then you do the same thing to the other side, and then you stitch it down, and then you finish the hem line. Okay guys, so this is what the final look of our v-neck knot shoulder top looks like. Can you see the knot at the shoulder? Can you see? So this is what it looks like. This is what the back looks like. You can even make this top for your little girls. This is so beautiful. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. So make yours, and if you make yours, you can tag me on Instagram. If you are on Instagram, tag me on Instagram. I would like to see your own make. And yeah, we've come to the end of today's tutorial. So if you are yet to subscribe to the channel, make sure you subscribe, share this video with your friends. Until I see you guys in another tutorial, do have a wonderful day. Bye for now.